Technology has made some wonderful things possible this year, especially bringing down barriers of geography to allow us to connect. Another great gift has been to connect with composers. You can't ask Bach what he had in mind in Measure 27, and working with living composers creates great opportunities for learning and connection. Besides Matthew Emery's Breathe, which you can find a feature of on our YouTube channel, we're preparing 3 more pieces for world premieres, and I'm excited to be joined by all 3 composers today. We have Dr. Leonard Enns, our recent competition winner, introduced earlier and based in Waterloo, Ontario. Katerina Gimon, a composer of wonderful and dramatic choral works, including a very compelling piece called Fire, which you may have heard us perform a couple seasons back. And Stuart Beatch, based here in Edmonton, of course, and who sings with Chronos. We encourage you to look them all up and check out more of their music. Thanks so much, all 3 of you, for being here. Great to see you. So maybe I'll start with you, Len, with the question, what's it been like to be a creative person this year?
Well, the story is somewhat similar to your experience. I'm a conductor and composer, and we just squeezed in our March concert last year. And then Sue and I left for a week and came back to what was supposed to be rehearsals, and it didn't happen. What I did then during that time instead was set myself a project of composing a short piece every week, which I did through April and May. So I accomplished about 8 pieces. And then, of course, submitted one of those to your competition, which turned out very nicely. In the fall with the choir, again, we managed to rehearse in what we called our concrete cathedral, which was a local parkade. And that was all according to rules. So it's been composing and conducting, but in very different ways, and waiting.
A lot has changed for choirs all over, as Len was just alluding to. And Katerina, I was wondering how that's affected kind of your composing schedule, or maybe the amount of commissioning, what that's been like the past year for you.
Yeah, so I mean, as you can imagine, right off the bat, last year in March, things were off to a little bit of a rocky start. There was a number of cancellations in my schedule, and then a number of projects that I had that were pretty much in limbo, as a result of the fact that the groups that had commissioned them didn't know when or if they would be meeting again, when or if or how they would have concerts. So there was a lot of uncertainty towards the beginning, but then things shifted pretty quickly towards innovation. And I ended up getting to take on a lot of really, really unique and interesting projects involving multiple choirs. For example, I'm involved in a project called Sing Across Canada that involved 6 choirs from across Canada. Another project called Sonic Time Lapse that involved, it's like a collaborative commissioning. So I think about 20 or 30 choirs were involved in that on a smaller scale. So smaller fees, but the cool thing about that one is the choristers actually got to submit their own texts and different elements that could inspire the pieces. So we ended up finding different ways to engage the choral community in times. And so I think it's ended up being a little bit of a silver lining. Although my schedule wasn't exactly what I expected, it led me to a lot of places I wouldn't expect, and that I'm happy to have gotten to.
That pivoting of the whole choral community towards innovation that has happened in these past few months is something you, Stuart, I know have kind of seen firsthand. You wear many hats in the choral world. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a bit about what you've seen this year that's inspired you.
Of course. So, I mean, as you know, I'm among other things, the program coordinator for Choir Alberta. And so I've had the opportunity to see kind of what's going on and take the temperature of the choral community and see how have people adapted. And I think, as Katerina said, innovation really is the word. And I think what I found most inspiring is the way in which the entire choral community has really been working together to get through this. There are, it seems like almost every week, a new roundtable or webinar or something that's been arranged for conductors to share ideas, to share problem-solving tactics, and what they've been doing to, for example, how do you culminate a season without a concert? And this is an approach that other choirs have taken as well. And it's really exciting to see so much creativity and so much energy going into sustaining this art form, and the dedication and passion of the individuals that are helping us see it through. So I've really enjoyed seeing that over the last year for sure.
Thanks, Stuart. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about some of the music, the pieces that the choir is working on by each of you. First, Len, congrats again on the competition win. It's been great to dig into a little more time. If you would, tell us just a little bit about this Rilke text that you picked. You did the translation yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was one of the 8 pieces that I was alluding to before. I did 2 pieces on texts of Rilke's. The first one I left in the original German, and this one I decided to translate. I was thinking of the upcoming Da Capo season, my chamber choir, which is to be an environmentally focused season. And Rilke's poem, which he wrote while he was on a trip to Russia around 1900, as part of his booklet called The Book of Hours, is so prescient, I guess. I mean, it starts by saying, give us just a little more time. He doesn't ever use the word God or anything like that. For him, nature is a becoming spiritual reality. Give us a little more time before you return to forest and water and so on. And it's hard to know if that's a threat or if that's actually a comfort that the earth might return again. And then at the end, near the end, and I'm going to stop right away, we're running out of time, but near the end, he says, again, give me 7 days. I mean, it's like the creation of 7 days almost. Give me 7 days, 7 more hours. And at the end, he says, he realizes it's not I who am doing the writing in this book of creation, but my hand is being controlled by a greater hand. So it's a wonderful text, I think, and I'm so thrilled that you've chosen the piece.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And the audience will hear both that beginning, the reference to you darkening deep, the beginning, and the eventual culmination of you yourself will do the writing in the excerpt we'll hear just a little bit later. Stuart, you were last year's competition winner. That was something we were excited to announce at our last Edmonton concert before COVID, and yet we have yet to have the opportunity to present that piece to the public. Of course, we've enjoyed digging into your Stars to Hold, and I'm wondering if you could tell us a bit about the text that you chose. We had limited, I'll remind our audience, our competition for the 2019 year to texts by Sarah Teasdale, but we left it open to the composers to make a choice.
Of course. And I feel like Sarah Teasdale is always such a treasure trove for composers. She sits on this kind of edge between public domain and still being modern enough that contemporary ears really find a lot of excitement in her poetry. And I found with the poem that I ended up choosing, which is from a larger collection, and the poem is just titled Peace. I was really struck by the way that she incorporates this nature imagery into her poetry. And there's lots of the feeling of waves and water. And I tried to capture that in the music, and this sense of kind of the ebb and flow of waves. And in the music that is manifested in the way that the texture kind of keeps growing and pulling away and kind of thickening in texture and simplifying. And so it was a lot of fun to write, and I also look forward to hearing the first performance, although of course I've had a lot of fun working on it with the choir, and it's been really exciting to kind of be inside the project as it's happening.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's one thing to have access to each of you on the phone or email, and it's another thing to have the composer right there in the rehearsal, and you can see if he's frowning or smiling. It's a really great thing. Seeing the smiles has been a little more difficult this year, but thanks for that. In anticipation of eventually doing a full program for the public of Sarah Teasdale settings, we commissioned you, Katerina, of course, for another Sarah Teasdale poem, which you and I kind of chose together, called Spring Rain. And you know, despite all the lyricism we've talked about in her texts, you wrote us an upbeat piece, which I'm excited about. Although it's kind of enmeshed or enclosed in kind of more reflective, you know, outer sections. There's this really driving middle section. Our audience will actually hear us rehearsing that piece, and we decided to add a tambourine because it was tough to keep tempo together with 3-meter distancing and in a live acoustic wearing masks. But that driving rhythm was really great to be able to switch things up and work on this year. Tell us a little bit about how you reflected that text in your musical decisions.
Yeah, so I mean, part of the thing that drew me to that text in particular, so I mean, we have that nature imagery that you see in a lot of Sarah Teasdale texts, but also in particular in this one, this idea of memory and in immersing yourself in nature, in this case, in listening to the sounds of the spring rain, how it can bring about lost or forgotten memories. So the poem tells the story of someone sitting out in the rain, and as they listen to the spring rain, it resurfaces this memory that they thought they had forgotten, they didn't even know was there, of them standing in the rain with a lover years ago. And so it's passionate, it's vivid, it's beautiful, and it goes all these different places. So as Jordan alluded to a little bit, the beginning and the end, because of the way she structured the text, are in more of this dreamlike kind of state. So at the beginning, when she's discovering, oh, this reminds me of this, and at the beginning when she comes back to sort of reality, but the middle described this memory in vivid detail, and the passion, the vulnerability, the hurt a little bit it alludes to, but this idea, I think, of young love is sort of what she's describing, and how wild and free and beautiful it is. And so I thought, you know, a lot of people don't do Sarah Teasdale in that way, but I think this piece can go there, especially in that middle section. And so that's what I did.
Yeah, excellent. This is a little bit like having a pre-concert talk, except we get to, you know, do it from our living room, and that's pretty great, although we hope to have pre-concert talks with each of you eventually, and that would be a wonderful thing if that happens before too long. Thank you to all three of you for being here today, and it's a privilege, of course, to work on brand new music with each of you. So stay well and healthy until we see each other. And now you'll get to hear, the audience at home, some of each of these brand new works. Here's Chronos in rehearsal in March.
Thank you.
Thanks to our videographer, Erik Visser, and recording technician, Yachimec, for their work on that night in March, helping us to provide you a taste of some of this new Canadian music.